in the last stream, we were working on upgrading our refined storage system. We added a few new crafters over here on top of our thermal expansion machines. Today, I want to work on a couple of things, but I think initially I want to work on trying to fix a problem that we ran into in the last stream, and that is that these universal pipes here cannot simultaneously insert one thing and extract another. You either have to extract everything, items, power, fluids, etc., or you have to insert everything, items, power, fluids, etc., and that kind of limits the utility of these pipes as universal pipes, as noted by this system here. In order to get the auto-crafting setup that we wanted in yesterday's stream, we had to have universal pipes both on the back and on the bottom of every single machine. Thankfully, there is a solution, and that solution comes in the form of one of my favorite mods, and that is Xnet. So Xnet here is a little pricey for us to get into, because to get started, we do need to get an Xnet Controller, and to make the Xnet Controller, we do need a machine frame from RF Tools. This machine frame is made using two simple machine frames. These are made in a Disillusion Chamber with a steel casing and a pity machine frame. These are both made using a regular machine frame, which thankfully we no longer have to worry about because we have them being made for us automatically. I think the only piece of this craft that we currently don't have is really the Disillusion Chamber, which I don't think is going to be too difficult for us to make. To make this, we need 2 buckets, 2 gold, 1 diamond gear, 2 plastic, and 1 chest. We have almost all of that ready to go. The only things we are missing are a regular old chest. I don't think we can make a driftwood chest, but never mind. I'm completely wrong. You totally can. Diamond gear-wise, we should be able to get a diamond gear going here fairly quickly. So once this diamond gear is done, it is of course going to be pulled back into our system using our new ender chest importer, and at that point we have our first Disillusion Chamber. So I think for now I'll probably put this down somewhere over here, maybe right about there, simply due to the fact that a lot of the recipes in the Disillusion Chamber do require latex, and as luck would have it, we have a 12 bucket tank of latex right here ready to be pumped into this Disillusion Chamber. And so long as we have at least 2 fluid pipes here, we can do something like this, and we should hopefully see this guy start to fill up with latex. At that point, I think we should have pretty much everything that we need in order to make ourselves 2 of these simple machine frames. The 2 pity machine frames, we should be able to just craft right out of the gate. 1, and as soon as we make some more plastic, 2. Beautiful. That does remind me, between streams, I have made a few tweaks to the base, including adding some new drawers to this 3rd, or I guess 4th wall here, as well as some trim, of course, to connect the drawers up to the main drawer controller. So we now have drawers for the essence. I've left these 3 drawers here blank for the remaining 3 tiers of mystical agriculture essence that we currently don't have, and I've also put in some drawers for both kinds of rubber that we're getting from the pyrolyzer over here. But either way, back over here, at that point we do also have to make the steel casing, and this one's definitely going to be a little bit trickier because for that we're going to have to grab some iron, which we are running kind of low on. The reason for that is that we're backing up on gravel, and the reason for that is that we do not yet have a void upgrade in this drawer over here. Now, we did move the blast chiller in the last stream, and so I think we actually have a drawer full of obsidian, hiding out in our system. If we do something like this, that should hopefully get rid of the excess gravel there and keep this whole system moving. Just to make sure that we keep getting iron, I think I will push iron to the front of the queue there. So hopefully our iron reserves will start to go up slowly but surely here. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I did put a 2x2 drawer on top of this pulverizer to replace the previous 1-slot drawer that was holding just gravel, because as it turns out, there are other byproducts as well, like apatite and cinnabar, that we get from some of the other ores that are processed. I think it's tin that gives off apatite, and maybe copper or gold that gives off cinnabar, something like that. But all of those do want to be stored away and do want to be voided if we get too many of them, just to make sure the system keeps going. But either way, as I was saying, if we want to make the steel casings required to make the simple machine frames, we're going to have to get 8 steel ingots, and for that, we need both iron and coal. Now, at the moment, the metallurgic infuser here is fairly slow. However, we can speed it up via the use of speed upgrades. And this is true for pretty much all mechanism machines, and they're really not too difficult to make. They're made with 2 infused alloys, 2 glass, and 1 osmium dust. So what I think I might do, just to make it a little easier for future Isaac to use the metallurgic infuser, is I might go ahead and drop in some redstone, drop in some iron, and we can also look at making energy upgrades as well. The energy upgrades kind of counteract the speed upgrades, because the speed upgrades, while they increase the speed of your machine, also increase its power use, and to offset that, you can install energy upgrades, which reduce the amount of energy your machine uses. The energy upgrades here are made in a very similar way. It's basically the exact same recipe, but with gold dust instead of osmium dust. So there is the 16 infused alloys. For the crushed gold and the crushed osmium, we might as well use the pulverizer that we already have over here. And once again, I am going to steal our speed upgrades to make this pulverizer just a tad faster while we work on getting the gold and osmium dust. So let's put in 8 of both. You can only put in a maximum of 8 speed and 8 energy upgrades into any one given mechanism machine. Okay, so once we have all of the dusts here, I think we have enough infused alloys to make 4 of each. So let's put everything in the system. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 of the energy upgrades, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 of the speed upgrades. And at this point, there are 2 ways you can install these into the machine. If you open it up, there is an upgrades button in the top right. You can click that, and then you can put the upgrades in like this. This does work, although it's fairly slow. You have to wait for this arrow here to finish before you can put the next upgrade in. Alternatively, if you're on the outside of the machine, you can just shift right click and the upgrades will go directly into the machine without having to wait for them to be kind of processed in like you would with this system up here. And so now, if we do the same thing again, let's say we get another 16 redstone here, along with another 16 iron, we should be able to throw both of these in, and the machine should be a good deal faster. And once again, if we take those infused alloys, we can do the exact same thing, get 4 more speed and 4 more energy upgrades. Put those all in. And now we have a machine that probably uses a fair bit of power, but in theory, if we grab some coal and we grab some iron, should be able to make steel here pretty quickly. So we'll do, let's say, 8 coal, and we'll also do 8 iron. This machine is now much, much faster than it was previously. And in fact, chat, we can even take this one step further. If we get some osmium here, and we put the osmium in with the redstone, like this, we're going to start to get basic control circuits. And what we can do with these is we can make what is known as an installer. In Mechanism, there are 4 tiers of installer: basic, advanced, elite, and ultimate, and these refer to the different tiers of machine that you can get in the game. For example, if we take this basic tier installer, which is 4 redstone, 2 iron, 2 basic control circuits, and 1 plank, we can then shift right click that onto our metallurgic infuser, and that transforms it into a basic infusing factory, which is essentially the exact same machine. We still have this slot here for our catalyst items, like coal, but we now have these 3 slots along the top, allowing us to process triple the number of ingots at any given time. So now if we take these 8 iron ingots, let's take these 8 enriched iron, we're now not only working faster, thanks to all the speed and energy upgrades that we just put in, but we can also process up to 3 different items at a time. The only question now is whether or not we have the power to run this at such a speed. Also, I should mention there is an auto sort button on the left. By default, if you put an item in, it just stays in the one lane, but if you click auto sort on, it will distribute the items amongst all of the available slots. So you'll see at this point we are running out of power. That's because this machine uses a whopping 600 redstone flux per tick, which is pretty pricey. We can mitigate that, of course, a little bit by taking out some of the speed upgrades. You'll notice right here that having 8 speed upgrades in has multiplied the energy usage of this machine by 256 times. So it's using 256 times as much power as it was previously. Thankfully, we've reduced the energy consumption by 10 times, but you'll notice that those two numbers don't quite equate, and so the end result is that the machine now uses a lot more power than it did before. For now, I think that's fine. It does work for short bursts, which I think is really all that we're going to be doing in the near future. But either way, at this point, we do have some steel dust. We can take that steel dust, of course, and throw it into our blast furnaces over here. And once those are done, at that point, that should be everything that we need for 2 steel casing, 1 and 2. And from there, I think we probably have basically everything outside of maybe some nether brick that we need in order to make this happen. So we'll take 4 netherrack real quick here, and we'll get those smelting over in these furnaces. Whilst we wait for these to smelt, we'll also begin putting everything else that we need, including some plastic, over into the Disillusion Chamber. Again, right now, fairly slow. Definitely not the fastest machine in the world. In the future, we can now look at making speed upgrades for this machine, which I think are actually called speed add-ons. Yeah, there are 2 tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. These are both made within the Disillusion Chamber with latex, redstone, glass, and then gears. So those are actually not too difficult for us to make, and we might look at making some maybe sooner rather than later. But either way, we do have everything we need for the second simple machine frame. And so I'm pretty sure, chat, that we now also have basically everything that we need for this controller here. I'll just make some torches to ensure that we can make both of the redstone repeaters and the redstone comparator. Although it would appear that we are somewhat light on cobblestone. That is fine. It's a very fixable problem. Boom. There is number 2. We then need 2 blue dye. That gets us the machine frame. And from there, we should have everything we need to make the controller. Nice. So, the controller on its own is actually fairly useless. Despite the fact that it was quite expensive and we spent all that time making it, on its own, it doesn't do too much. However, in combination with some network cable and some network connectors, this device is actually extremely useful. It doesn't really matter which color you pick here. I normally go for blue, but in the interest of mixing things up, and also due to the fact that we do have beets being made to make red dye, we might as well go with the red network cable here. We'll start with 16. And again, it doesn't really matter which color connector you go with either, but again, in the interest of consistency, I think I will go ahead with red connectors as well. We'll go with 2 red connectors for now, although we are going to need more in the future here. But essentially, let me find an area that has power, and let me also get some chests here just to kind of show off how this works, for those who are unaware. So down here, we should have our default energy line. We do. We'll drop down our network controller right about here. Definitely not its final resting place, but for now, this will allow me to show you guys how this actually works. And also, I'm going to lower my GUI scale just a smidge so we can actually see the GUI in the controller here. So the idea with Xnet is that we can use these channels in here, these 8 channels, to move around basically anything we like. We can do fluids, we can do items, we can do gases, we can do energy, we can do redstone logic, so you can even transfer redstone through here as well. In fact, if we click on one of the channels, we have energy, logic, mechanism logic, items, fluids, gases, and slurries, which are another kind of form of liquid from mechanism. But essentially, the idea is that you can create a channel dedicated to one thing. Let's use items as an example, create. And now, on the left-hand side here, the controller will list any device connected to it. Right now, there's nothing connected there. However, if we do something like this and we throw down our chest, we can then put down a connector onto that chest, like so. And then we also, I believe, need a connector on the controller as well. Now, these 2 connectors are right next to each other, which is why they've connected together. However, if you want those to be further apart, let's say that we have our chest all the way over here, we can put the connector down like this, and then we can use regular cable, which is cheaper, to connect them up, like so. And now, if we look in the controller, we can see that both the controller and the chest are on the network. So let's say that we put down our next chest, maybe right about here. We have a dark oak chest this time, as opposed to the original birch chest. We'll drop down the connector. someone in the Twitch chat did ask if you can have multiple connectors in one block space. That's not necessary because you can connect multiple things to one connector. So for example, I put this chest down, this connector can connect to it. And if we look in here, it does show everything. It shows both of the Dark Oak chests and the birch chest. And again, if I was to add another Dark Oak chest like this, it would show 3 Dark Oak chests and the birch chest. They all appear at the same time. And this is where it gets very powerful, because now what we can do is under the item channel, which is this channel right here, we can begin to tell the controller how to move items between different chests. So for example, let's imagine that we have niter dust in this chest, right? Let's imagine this is like a machine that's making niter dust, but we don't need the niter dust here. Let's imagine that we need the niter dust in this chest right here. So in here, you can double click on any of these icons and it will show you in the world which block that is. So this chest right here is where we want the items to go, and this chest right here is where the niter is coming from. So what we can do is we can click this button right here for the birch chest, click create, and then over on the left, there's a button to set this to insert or extract. If we set this to extract, this connector here is now ready to pull items out of this birch chest, but it won't do so until it has a place to send them. That's where down here, we click on the Dark Oak chest, we click create, and this by default is set to insert. And so now if we look over here, the niter is being pulled out. And if we look over here, the niter is being sent. Pretty cool stuff. We can take that one step further because there are a ton of options in here. Right now, this is set to single mode. We can set that to either stack or count. Stack meaning that it will move a full stack of items at a time, and count meaning that it will move a specific number. So if I set this to stack, all of the niter is moved at once. So we'll put it back in, and instantly the whole stack is moved over to here. If we were to set it to count, at that point, a box comes up. We could set this to like 7. And then now you get the idea. If we put this in here, it's going to take out 7 at a time and move those 7 directly over into this chest. And you can do this with all kinds of stuff. There are more options, of course, for items. You can whitelist over here or blacklist. You can filter for tags, metadata, MBT. You can change how fast the items are extracted. Right now, they're extracted once every 20 ticks. That's what this means here, number of ticks for each operation. There are 20 ticks per second in Minecraft. So right now, we have 7 items being extracted every 1 second. You can increase this number to 60 ticks, which would be 3 seconds. Alternatively, if you right-click, you can decrease the number down to as little as 10 ticks, which is once every half a second. So now if we move this back over, it's still going to do it in sets of 7, but it's going to do it twice as fast. So we're moving effectively 14 per second as opposed to 7. And like I mentioned, you can do the same thing with energy, with fluids, and you can do it all within one machine and using one connector. So this gets even more interesting when we start looking at things like our machines over here, because now what we can do is we can get rid of these 2 universal pipes, and we can instead just have one Xnet connector, either on the back or on the front. And then what we can do is we can tell the controller to insert energy to all the machines while simultaneously extracting energy and sending it round to the ender chest, so long as the ender chest has its own connector on it, which is pretty nifty stuff. And one further thing that I think really pushes Xnet, at the minute at least, head and shoulders above some of the other mods is the fact that in the 1.16 version of Xnet, there are facades. A bunch of other mods like pipes and like mechanism have cables or pipes that are able to move energy, items, fluids, etc., but none of them have the ability to cover those pipes up. These facades are super nifty and super cheap, and once you have them, all you have to do is shift right click on the block you want to imitate. So let's, for example, say we wanted to imitate dark oak logs. We'll take a dark oak log, drop it down, shift right click our facade on the dark oak log, and then from there we can then right click these facades over our pipes, and it's going to cover up those pipes and make them look like other blocks. You can even do it with connectors, just shift right click, and boom. So we can essentially just hide all of this cabling in the floor of our base. While you're holding anything from an Xnet, so a facade or a pipe, it will show you the outline of where everything is. And if you're not holding that stuff, it will just look like a regular block. And so what we can do now is we can begin running item, energy, fluid, and gas pipes essentially through the entirety of our base, hidden in the floor, and all within one pipe, and all controlled in one centralized location. Alright, so a little bit of base renovating later, and I've placed this drawer controller in the tunnel that leads to our thermal expansion room. I've also added some terracotta to all of the other tunnels to match the one over here housing our refined storage controller. We've then used a facade, of course, to cover up the connector there. And so now what we should be able to do is basically the exact same thing all the way along like this. Now, one problem I guess we are going to run into is that at some point we do have to cross over to the other side of the room, right? Like we can run our red cable in here and we can cover this up using facades. However, at a certain point we do have to cross over, and unfortunately, it doesn't really work too well with glass. For example, if I do this, you can make it look like glass, but it doesn't connect and you can still see the pipe. Thankfully, as the Twitch chat has pointed out, we can go up and around here. So what we can do is we can go into the wall like this, and if we make our facade look like oak logs, we can just cover those up. Okay, so a little bit of cable routing later, and we now have an exit cable that goes all the way from the controller down around. You can't see the corner there, but those two do connect. It goes around, and it connects to the back of all three of these machines. Unlike with the universal cable, it's completely fine to have these on the back because we can then, of course, just get a facade and cover all of these up. I did miss one there, but if I quickly head out, we can probably fix that before we move on any further. There we go. And externally, outside of this horrible refined storage cable, you can't really tell that there's an Xnet cable there, which is super nice. So now, back inside, we have to configure the controller to send both power and items to the correct location. And speaking of items, we should also get a connector down onto this guy as well. So I guess we'll probably just do something like this, and then we can just connect that up through some facaded stone bricks. And if we really wanted to in the future, we could try and like move this to hide the cable. But for now, I don't think it's a huge problem that you can see the cable there. I think that's completely fine. And so in here, what we can do is we can stick with the item channel that we have, and we can basically just set all of the machines here to extract. So create, extract, create, and extract. I'm going to set them all to stack mode just so they extract as fast as possible. And then we'll set the ender chest to insert. And so now we effectively have the same system we had before. But of course, we can take this one step further because we can also now get rid of the bottom cable as well. And at that point, what we want to do is we want to create a new channel. So over in here, we're going to go to channel 2. We're going to set this to Xnet Energy, create. We then want to set all of the machines to insert. So we're going to insert energy to all of these, which again is the default state. You've got insert, extract, priority, rate, and the maximum. So you can set how much RF particular you want to send. Right now, we're going to leave both of these blank because we really just want to send as much power as we can to all of these machines. And at that point, all we need to do now is the slightly tricky job of getting an Xnet cable all the way around to our energy cell right here. For now, we'll probably do this here, although what I think I will do between streams, chat, is I'll probably replace all of our universal pipes. I think I'm going to get rid of basically all of them. Right now, we have a universal pipe running lava to the middle. Going forward, we can do that with Xnet. We can actually get rid of that middle tank, of course. We could just have another connector on the back of our smeltery, so we could put one red connector here as well. In fact, let's go ahead and make one real quick if we can, and drop that down here. If we connect this one up, we can then send lava from the tank over by the magmatic generators over to this tank here for the smeltery. We can also send power around as well, which we're about to do. And so, yeah, I think between streams, I'll try and gut out most of the universal piping. I don't think we really need any of it anymore. We can also put a connector down on the RF Tools controller. And I guess actually one important thing that I haven't yet done is power this controller itself. You'll see right now we're actively losing power here, and that is somewhat problematic. The good news is that you can actually use the controller to power the controller, because you'll see the controller is here. If we set it to insert, as soon as we connect up the energy cube underground over there to the system and set it to extract, it will fill itself with power from that energy cube. So I've run this cable over, and what we could have done is we could have once again run kind of around the walls to hide the cable, but I think I'm actually going to begin kind of dismantling this system here, we do now have 45,000 Inferium Essence. But that's not the reason I'm dismantling it. The reason I'm going to dismantle it is that now that we have that Disillusion Chamber, we can actually look at setting up a larger farm up on the surface. So I think instead all I'll do for now is somewhat jankily pick up most of this stuff here and then see if we can't get that bit of red cable there connected to this bit of red cable here without it looking horrendous. And I think the easiest way to do that is through the roof. So that down there is now connected. There's our cube. It's got a connector on it. The cable somewhat jankily runs up. Again, once we get rid of the universal cable, this will be a lot tidier. It then runs all the way along. We're, of course, going to cover all of this with facades fairly shortly. But now in here, we can set the basic energy cube to extract. And look at that. The controller itself is filling up with power. And over here, we should see all of these machines also filling up with power. And we still have space underneath all these machines should we want to connect up something else to the bottom of them in the future. For example, if we wanted to add another crafter, which we wouldn't have much of a reason to do, but if we did, we could add that to the bottom and double our number of craftable slots. You can do that without making a second crafter. We do have an add-on mod called Extra Storage, which adds higher tier crafters. You'll see the default one has, I think, 9 slots. The iron has 27, gold has 45, diamond has 63, and netherite has 81. So that's a lot of crafting slots, more than we'd ever need. But I guess if you wanted to, you could put 2 of them down. Twitch chat is also mentioning that we could even just move the current ones down underground to try and make the room look a little bit cleaner, which is something I might do as well, actually. That might not be a bad idea. For now, let me quickly cover up all of these pipes here with yet more facades. It's definitely not the cleanest cabling job in the world. As you can see, it's a little janky. However, the beauty of Mechanism is that as soon as we scroll off of our facade, you can't see any of the cables and everything just works in the background as you'd expect. So now, let's have a look here real quick at setting up a slightly larger planter and harvester. I say slightly larger because we could go tremendously large, but I think for now, we'll probably go with a fairly small 3x3 farm. In the future, should we want a bigger farm, which we probably will want, we'd also have to get another enchantment for our pedestal, which is definitely doable, but right now, not something we're going to do today. So I think what I would like to do here is I would like to get preferably some more dirt. In fact, we're actually very low on dirt, although we do have dirt seeds here. And so one thing we probably can do is something like this. Make sure we have the pedestal down in the middle. Again, shield slot and right click. Perfect. Let's get our dirt seed down. And let's also get some of the Prudentium essence here. So the idea is that we're going to hoe all of this land, which should always stay irrigated because it is on top of actual water. We can then drop down a seed. For now, we'll do dirt. That's going to grow nice and quickly. And we can even help it along a little bit with the watering can if we'd like as well. And once we have 8 dirt essence, we can then craft that up into, I believe, 24 dirt blocks. And then we can finish this off. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the basics of that. We then, of course, want to put down our plant gatherer, which for now we'll do like this. And of course, we also want to put down the plant sower, which we're going to put directly beneath this pedestal here. So we want to put that down, ideally right about there. Now, of course, we are going to have to connect both of those up with power, and we're also going to have to set up a system to pull all of the items to where we want them to go. Thankfully, we can now do that with, you guessed it, none other than Xnet. If we get 2 more connectors here, which is just a case of grabbing 2 more chests, we can then put 1 connector down, let's say right about there, and we can put the other one down right on the back, or even on the bottom, I guess, of the plant gatherer here. Like that. And these are waterloggable as well, so you can put them in water and they work just fine. Also, although I am a big fan of the phantoms, let's go ahead and sleep. So it's a little janky, but I have connected both of these up. There's the connector on the bottom of the plant gatherer and on the back. By back, I mean this side furthest away here, this side here of the plant sower. That then goes down, connects to facades here that then connect into the floor there. So we should be able to see both the plant gatherer and the plant sower in here now. And we can set both of those to insert on the power channel, which is channel 2. So both of those should now be receiving power. They are. And at this point, if we want these to work in our new 3x3 area, we're going to have to make some range add-ons, because right now, if we click show working area, the plant harvester and the plant gatherer both only work within a 1-block area. And especially in the case of the plant sower, the 1-block area for that is this block right here, which is not even useful. So for both of those machines, we are going to have to make a range add-on. And I'm pretty sure that the one that we need is just the tier 1 range add-on here. That's going to give it 1 extra block worth of range in each direction. To make this, we once again need the Disillusion Chamber. Also, I would love to put all these Inferium seeds away, but I'm pretty sure that we're kind of running a little low on storage. And so I think temporarily, I might just throw these in here just to clear out some inventory space, although I do plan on moving those sooner rather than later. But over in here, we just need some cobblestone, we need some redstone, and we need some glass pins, all of which we have. And so if we go ahead and drop in 2 redstone, 2 glass pins, and 4 cobblestone, we get our first range add-on tier 1. And if we go and drop that into the plant gatherer here, we should see the working area increase from a 1x1 into a 3x3. So now this is capable of harvesting anywhere inside of this range. And you'll notice that right now it has not harvested that. I think that's because it kind of works through the blocks 1x1, but it should get there in a second, and it should begin harvesting that block. Okay, so a little bit of testing later, and it looks like the tier 1 range add-on here is potentially bugged a little bit, because for whatever reason, if we put this in, although it shows the area here as working, the harvester just doesn't harvest with this range add-on in. You'll see that even though these are now fully grown and the working area looks like it should be working, for whatever reason, it's not harvesting these plants no matter how long we leave them. However, if we replace, like it made the sound there, but nothing actually got broken. If we replace this add-on, well, if we get rid of it, that gets harvested. But if we replace it with a tier 2 add-on, which is made in the exact same way, by the way, but with lapis instead of cobblestone, at that point, it does actually harvest. So at that point, we can start putting these seeds down in all of these slots, and once they grow, the harvester will actually harvest them. This is probably fine. It does make the area of the harvester bigger than it needs to be, but because there's nothing in this area anyway, it shouldn't really have too much of a detrimental effect. And as you can see, these are all getting harvested basically as soon as they are fully grown. So now the question is whether or not the planter has the same bug. If I take the range, well, first of all, let's get rid of this working area here. Let's show the working area of the plant sower, which right now is just the pedestal. If we put in this and these, it looks like the plant sower does work. So that is working in the intended 3x3 area. So essentially, if you're running into issues, try using a regular tier 1 add-on in the plant sower, but then potentially anything from tier 2 upwards in the plant gatherer. So now, essentially what I'm thinking is that we can start to utilize the filter in here. So all of these colored slots associate now to 1 slot on the farm, right? So obviously we can't use the middle slot. And also I've got to stop walking on this because I keep basically wasting Prudentium essence. But obviously we can't use the middle slot. But what we can do is we can, for example, put Inferium seeds in the top left slot. And let's say we put dirt seeds in the top middle slot. At that point now, if we put these in, those should get planted in those slots. Now, I'm fairly certain that any empty slot will get filled automatically. So right now it's planted, presumably the 2 that we asked, and then just filled the rest with whatever it can. But my idea here is that if we fill each of these 8 slots with different seeds, for example, we could start using some of the seeds we made in the last stream, like the stone seed here and the ice seed, we can start putting these in to specific slots, so here and here, to make sure that they always have a place to be planted. And at that point, we can essentially start to grow multiple of these mystical agriculture seeds, not just the 1 seed that we were growing previously. Okay, so a little while later, we now have this design here. So we have 4 slots being used for Inferium seeds, and then we have 1 slot each being used for wood, dirt, ice, and stone. Those are all of the seeds that we made in the last stream. So At this point in time, if we take all of those seeds and we put them into the plant sower, they should start getting planted. And I think if I put in just Inferium seeds, it should only plant them in the slots allocated. So you can see it's not planting them in the corners anymore because we've already allocated those to other crops. So now we can drop these in as well, and each one of those should get planted. So that is working. Now what we need to do, and the wheat seeds here were just from me testing when the add-on wasn't working, but now what we need to do is we need to automate this system. We need to get the essences into our storage drawers, and I have just made a few new storage drawers up here for all of the essences that are going to be coming in, and we need to get all of the seeds back down into the plant sower. So in here, what we're going to do, we're going to create a new channel for items, and here we're going to extract from the plant gatherer, create, extract, we'll do stack, and then we're going to insert into the plant sower. Now, this is going to work, but it's going to cause a problem for us, and that problem is that right now we are producing more Inferium seeds than any other kind of seed. Thankfully, Industrial Foregoing has thought of this, and there is a lock input button here, much like with the Disillusion Chamber earlier in the series. So now, when we take the wood seeds out, that slot there is still allocated to wood seeds, and so even if eventually all of the rest of the slots do fill up, this slot here will still be able to hold wood seeds in the future. So all of those should have their place in there, which is super useful. And so this is working. The only thing that we need to do now is we need to take all of the stuff out of here and get it into our system. Also, we actually have to take care of the seeds that are going to back up, because of course, once the sower is full, the seeds will then back up in the plant gatherer. So for that, I think really all we have to do is grab yet another trash can. Eventually, we might look at consolidating all of our trash cans and just using one Xnet trash can for everything. But for now, if we were to, for example, drop a trash can down somewhere over here. In fact, let's do it right about here to save on pipes. So this is now connected via Xnet. If we head down, what we can do is in here, we can also set the trash can to insert, so create insert, but we want to give the plant sower a higher priority. So if we set the plant sower's priority to 10, and then, for example, let's set the trash can's priority to like negative 100, what should happen now is the Xnet system should always try to send anything from here into the plant sower before it sends it to the trash can. Of course, I am going to temporarily get rid of that, because what that's doing right now is that is also deleting all of our essences, which eventually is going to be fine. But what we need to do before we re-engage that is we need to set up a connector over on either our draw controller, but I think what's going to make more sense is for us to get yet another draw slave. If we can get another draw slave, we could then, for example, put down a connector somewhere over here where we already have cable running, and we could put the draw slave right about there, and then that would allow us to nice and easily pump all of our essences into the system. So once again, we'll take a framed draw slave, we'll make that look like blue terracotta, we'll drop that down right about here, blends in quite nicely. We already have connectors here, and so if we just go ahead and grab one more red connector, like so, we can then drop that down right about here, like that, cover that up with the exact same facade, and now over in here, we can set the draw slave, which is this guy, to insert on that same channel. So we're extracting from the plant gatherer, inserting to the frame draw controller. Again, right now that's not going to do anything because there are no draws that can accept these items, but if we begin to allocate draws to these items, if we make one for ice essence, one for dirt essence, one for stone essence, and one for wood essence, we should start to see all of those essences moving out. It does also appear that we're getting fertilized essences as well, and so I guess we'll also give that its own draw. And so now that that is done, what we can do is we can come back, we can do the exact same thing. We can set this to priority 10, set the trash can back up to insert, but priority negative 100. And so now the system should be working as intended. Basically, everything is planted. The plant gatherer gathers everything once it's fully grown. It sends the seeds back around to the sower, if there's space, and puts them into their designated slots. They're then planted in their designated space. It sends the essence round to the draw slave, if there's space in these draws here. If there's not space in the draws or in the plant sower, any excess seeds or essence that are produced are sent round to the trash can to keep the system flowing going forward. If we needed more essence, we could of course increase our storage space here, and if we wanted more seeds, we could also look at adding a storage drawer for the seeds, but in general, I don't see us needing more than 64 of any of these seeds and not more than 4 stacks of Inferium seeds, and in fact, at this point, we can probably go ahead and steal back some of those Inferium seeds from earlier and kind of just store those over in the plant gatherer here. If we just do like this, we can then relock that, and that should be good to go. Of course, going forward, we probably want to add more seeds, so we're probably not going to stick with 4 lots of Inferium forever. As we get more seeds, we can replace the Inferium with other things that we need, but now we are getting all of these essences, and so going forward, should we need some wood, for example, we could just grab our tree essence and use that essence to make something like logs. But yeah, I think, chat, that's probably about where we're going to wrap things up for today. We got our Xnet system up and running. We're now using it to connect up most of our base. I think going forward, we will probably be using Xnet almost universally whenever we need to transfer items, energy, fluids, gases, or slurries in the future. Like I said, between streams, I think what I will do is get rid of most of the universal pipe and start putting down more connectors, for example, on our controller, on our smeltery tank, on anything that requires power, and using those to kind of start moving things around. It's also quite possible that we could get rid of a good chunk of the logistical transporter setup as well and start using Xnet to transfer things to like the auto sieves and from the auto compressors and whatnot. I don't know if I'll do that just yet. I might hold off on that for a little bit longer, but for now, I think that is probably where we're going to wrap things up for today.